Throughout the 30s, Universal was going from strength to strength. No matter how crazy their monster movies got, they were continually becoming successful. However, by the 1940s, things had changed. World War II was happening by this point, and people had become desensitized to the monsters and more sensitive to the real-life atrocities in the real world. So in the 1940s, Universal slowly turned into a sequel factory, and The Mummy's Hand is a chief example of why that probably wasn't the best idea. Throughout the 1930s, Universal had become a monster movie machine, and they were very successful at it. But by the turn of the decade, Universal began producing them more as a sequel factory rather than trying to create anything creative and new. This was done for a variety of reasons, chief among them being World War II. People had become desensitized to monster movies by this point, in lieu of the real-life horrors going on in the world. And one of the first sequels ever produced in the 1940s was a sequel to The Mummy, produced almost 10 years after the original. The Mummy's Hand is very different from the original, and I don't think in the best way. It was directed by Christy Cobain, who had worked in various roles in Hollywood since the early 1910s. It tells the story of two bumbling archaeologists who learn of the tomb of Princess Ananka. So with funding from a strange magician and his daughter, they go and search for it, until they stumble upon the guardian of said tomb, the Mummy Karis. In terms of mummies, the Mummy Karis is the more stereotypical version of what mummies have become known for in today's pop culture. While Boris Karloff's mummy is a very eloquent speaker who just so happens to contain mystical powers, the Mummy Karis is essentially Frankenstein's monster, except a lot thinner and wrapped in bandages. And you can tell that Universal was in full just sequel-making mode and not trying to reinvent the wheel in any form or fashion. This movie ended up reusing several shots from past monster movies and lifting the entire score from Son of Frankenstein into this movie. The film was set to have a planned budget of $80,000, but somehow went over budget. Yeah, don't ask me why. But was it all worth it? Not really, no. This is overall just a very weird movie, just from a tonal standpoint. While the archaeologists in the first Mummy do have their odd funny moments, they're treated as competent scientists, who are there for a purpose and have a general mission. The archaeologists in this movie are essentially Abbott and Costello, but remove anything funny about Abbott and Costello. Those are the two archaeologists in this movie. And I've seen Abbott and Costello meet the mummy. That movie's hysterical. But The Mummy's Hand is not. It's just boring. And at the end of the day, you could tell that Universal was either in autopilot or just about to set the plane on autopilot. And the rest of the decade showed that it was about to get worse.